Hey everybody, this is episode 4 of Fresh New Chef Stuff. My name is Tim Smith. I'm a community engineer here at Chef, and today we're going to talk about testing boilerplate. So first off, testing can be a real tangled mess. And I don't mean a tangled mess of trying to get your systems tested and making sure that your kitchen runs complete. I mean a testing mess of actual configs. Just the plain simple base everything that you need to get these tests in place. And it's so much of a testing nightmare at times that I have an entire presentation that goes over all the little nitty gritty things that you would need to make this happen. So we can fill, 40, 50 minutes of talk time about everything that you need to do to make your configs work and your tests pass. And that's unfortunate, right? Like we shouldn't have this much effort that we have to put into just pure boilerplate that exists in every single one of our repos. And today I'm going to talk about two things that we've done that really make testing simpler within Chef. Just two small little tidbits for you. The first one is we have new simplified Dokken configs. If you haven't used kitchen-dokken before, this is a tool that Sean O'Mara wrote, and it really makes testing with Test Kitchen so elegant. It speeds up your Test Kitchen runs by using Docker containers instead of a full Vagrant VM, and it allows you to run those anywhere you can run Docker containers, which includes Travis CI. So if you want to set up continuous testing of all of your Chef community cookbooks, you can do that now with kitchen-dokken. But the problem you run into is you have these really verbose Dokken configs, and a lot of them are just these sections for each platform. You can see here I've circled in red, and those are the same pieces of config that you're going to have in every single Dokken config. And they're just things that we have to do to set these VM or set these Docker containers up to look a little bit more like a VM. Here's kind of an example of one of those, and I'll show how absurd some of the weird things we have to do here can be. So this is Debian 7. We're going to start, as you see in the image line, with the Debian 7 Docker container. This is an official Debian 7 container. And then we're going to go down further to our intermediate instructions. So this is what Dokken performs once that Docker image has been pulled down and brought up. So the first thing we're going to do is an apt-get update. That's pretty simple, same kind of thing that we would do on a VM in Chef. And then we're going to install a few different packages. Now these are packages that would come on a base install if we were just going to install into, say, VirtualBox, but we don't have them in Docker, and we need them in order for Chef to perform correctly. So we're going to need apt transport so that our repositories work the way we would expect them to. We're going to need proc PS and nettools so that inspect can check processes and port openings. We're going to need LSB release to make sure that OHI can gather the correct information that it needs. So pretty simple stuff there. In terms of Debian, this is a very short number of packages we have to install compared to a few of our other platforms where it's a pretty long list. The final thing is the real weird one here, and this is where I really want to show how strange it can be. So the Debian 7 container comes with this fun little sbin init.cutl file. And this isn't actually an actual init.cutl file, which normally would be a file that Upstart would include. It's actually just a text file that basically says, nah, I'm not a real file, you've been trolled. The problem is, though, that Chef uses sbin init.cutl to detect if we're on an Upstart system. And Debian 7 is not Upstart. Debian 7 is sysv. So if we bring up testing within a stock Debian 7 Docker container, Chef will think that it needs to start things using Upstart. It will try to use Upstart, and it will fail because Upstart is not on the system. And any service that needs to be started within your Chef cookbook will fail. So we have to remove that. And any time that you want to have a Dokken configuration that uses Debian 7, you have to copy this line over. So in my case, we have over 100 repositories. We've, slowly copied this throughout all of our different cookbooks, and it's a real time-consuming thing to do, right? Nobody wants to do this. So what we have now is another Sean O'Mara project. It's Dokken images. Now, instead of using that base official Debian 7 Docker container, we can use the Dokken images container for Debian 7, which starts with the official image and then does all the things that we need to have it behave a little bit more like a VM. And you can see from this list, we have those for all of our major platforms, the same platforms that we were using before. We have Amazon, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, OpenSUSE, and Ubuntu. But all of these go through a CI system. They're all going through Travis, and they're all going through the actual Docker cloud. So as soon as a PR gets opened up here and merged in, we'll have that fully built, and it'll be available for you to use. So this is what one of those looks like. This is that same Debian 7 image that we had before. We're still doing the apt-get update on it. We're installing a whole slew of packages, things you might want to use for troubleshooting, things that InSpec would use and OHI would need. We're making sure we have this init system helpers package that we're going to need in order to properly start up services. And then we're removing that init cuddle file. And this all happens behind the hood. It's all centralized magic, and it's available for you without you actually having to know, or even better, without you having to copy it to each of your configs. So now we have a much simpler Dokken config. Instead of having these complex intermediate instructions, we just say Dokken/Debian-7, and we go on with our life. The best part is as we find new issues or new platforms come out, we'll build those configs out. We'll have new containers available for you. You can pull those down. Every time you test in Travis, you'll get the latest and greatest, and they're available a few minutes after a PR goes through. So that, I think, really improves the Dokken experience, but not everybody is using Dokken, right? Some people are testing on their systems using VirtualBox, and for those people, we have Bento version slugs now. So in your standard kitchen.yaml config, if you're using Vagrant, if you specify CentOS 6 or you specify Ubuntu 16.04, what you're actually using is a Bento box. And Bento is a project that Seth Thomas has created, and it creates all the VMs that we need, and we're constantly spitting out new Bento boxes that run on Parallels and VMware and VirtualBox. And it's a pretty intensive thing. And the reason is that new platforms come out every week. So you could come out with what you think is a really extensive testing suite that tests the latest and greatest platforms, and it would look something like this. And unfortunately, within maybe a month or two, it's totally out of date. And this one here is completely out of date. All of these platforms have had new feature releases. You're still going to be testing the same major release, but lots of new changes have hit these platforms. And we're pushing out the latest and greatest, but we're also pushing lots of fixes, new VirtualBox tools, new VMware tools, and we're only putting those onto the latest and greatest VMs that we're creating. So in this case, you wouldn't get any new updates to a CentOS 6.8 box. CentOS 6.8 boxes are no more. We are only creating 6.9 boxes. And that's a real problem because if you're like me, you spend a lot of time doing find and replace, find all my CentOS 6.8s, replace them with 6.9, then make a for loop all over my cookbooks and try to commit these things all, and then watch something like Travis or Jenkins blow up for the next day while I run 100 different tests. Well, I don't want to do that. Nobody should have to do that. So now we're publishing the major versions of all of our OSs. And now you can just specify CentOS 6, which is really what you want, right? You want to test against CentOS 6. And if you want to update that to make sure that you have the latest and greatest version of CentOS 6, you can do Vagrant box update, just like you would do with a 6.8 box, except now you'll actually find an update, because if a 6.10 comes out, you'll be able to update and you'll pull that down. Or maybe just updates to the VMware tools. So I think that that's going to really simplify what the configs look like. Like I said, with just two simple little things here, just make your life a little bit easier, remove some of that boilerplate and some of that pain that you have in maintaining some of your testing configuration. Definitely want to throw out credit where credit is due here. Seth Thomas put together the Bento slugs, and Sean O'Mara put together the Dokken images repository. So big shout out to those guys. Super awesome work that is making all of our lives a little bit easier. And the final note is that I have a kitchen config examples repository that I've continued to update. This will always have just a simple Travis config, kitchen and a kitchen-dokken config that kind of shows off what we think the latest best practices are for what your config should look like. If new platforms come out, we'll list them in there. And this will be a really great place to stay tuned to watch or star or whatever on GitHub, so that you can always see the updates to what testing framework should look like. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Hopefully we'll have a new one soon. Thanks for watching.